Hi, welcome to Growth Marketing Chat. Today I am here with Kurt Daniel. Kurt is the CEO of Ubersmith. He has a very rich background, especially in marketing. So I'm really, really excited to have you here today with us, Kurt.
Thanks so much. Looking forward to it.
Me too. So before we start, I'd love for you to give us just an overview of your career and your background.
Sure. So I was going way back. I was a economics major. First job was as a management consultant. So I was interested in a lot of different things. But then pretty early on in my career, got focused on technology and specifically software. So I've been 21 years in software, big and small companies. So first at Microsoft, which was a great experience, and then three startups, all which did well. So Parallels, where I changed the name from SWSoft to Parallels, which is a good switch. We went from 3 million to 100 million in revenue, with over 1 million customers in 100 countries. And then Worklight, which later got bought by IBM, which is great. And then MongoDB, which is a pure rocket ship and pretty well known now, worth over $30 billion. And then Ubersmith for the last 7 years. I've built and led marketing teams from 1 to 40 people in 7 countries, but I've also led business development and sales, strategy and community, and been in the kind of CEO or kind of pure general management role, like I said, since I joined Ubersmith, and but still trying to stay as close to marketing as I can.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining today. I'm really, really excited to have this conversation with you. And so, given your background and kind of the different sizes of companies you've been at, I'm really interested to have your perspective on what companies need from marketing at different stages of their growth.
Sure. It's a great question. Something I've lived through, and I imagine you've lived through with your clients and before. So at the earliest stage, I think of it as product and company positioning, because you're really just building the initial product, which then you're hoping to get some adoption for, and hopefully some kind of money or revenue for, even if not right away. You need to build just a first website to give a landing place for people to find your company and help you find kind of product market fit through them. If you don't kind of immediately have it, there's initial lead generation through your website and otherwise, maybe at some events, and other strategies and tactics. And then you're really choosing your first marketing tools also, whether it's WordPress for your website, or HubSpot, or other tools you want to use to manage and enhance the website, and your initial lead gen efforts and customer communication efforts, importantly through email and otherwise. That's, I think, the earliest stage. And every company is a little different, and every time is a little different. But later you're building a team. You're getting more sophisticated about all the things I just mentioned. You're adding things, kind of additional areas, additional specialties. You might be getting better at PR and starting analyst relations, for example, and so on and so forth. And then even past that, you're really kind of scaling after you've done the initial kind of building of the team. You're adding additional levels. So now your team is kind of like 3 levels, and then 4, 5, 6 to X, and you're just getting more sophisticated, more specialized. The people you're bringing on are more specialized, which is great, because you can bring on new talent, additional talent, and depth, and everyone can learn and improve as well who's staying on the team, as the company gets bigger and bigger, and then just continue scaling and new ideas. And it's never static. There's always something to kind of learn or improve or try for your company.
Yeah. Yeah, well, thank you for this. I can definitely relate and see this, across our clients. Also, when you talked about like what you first need from marketing, you described one of my first jobs, which was kind of really fun to hear, because that's literally everything that I did at the time.
Yeah.
Um, so okay, so when you have these different things that are happening at different stages, something I hear a lot from marketers is like, well, it's important to build your brand, which I totally agree, right? Your brand and your messaging, if you don't have this, and like you can do anything else you want, it's probably not going to work.
Yeah.
But that said, in my perspective, it still should align to revenue and profitability. And so my question to you is that, do you think there's a time that is not true, that the role of marketing is not to generate revenue and profitability?
Gotcha. That's a really interesting question. And before I go there, you mentioned the idea about the brand, and that I view that as a company-wide effort where kind of marketing kind of leads it and kind of puts it all together. But looking to the revenue and profitability question, yes, absolutely. I mean, revenue is a good metric to be focused on. Really for most or all of the company at the highest level. But marketing doesn't typically own the revenue. Profitability is not usually important in the early days of a startup at most startups. And sometimes, even much later. So companies can go public and be worth billions of dollars and still not be profitable. And that's a good thing because they're efficiently and profitably bringing on new customers, but they're investing kind of in the future to grow faster. And everyone's aware of that, and that's okay. Eventually, companies should get profitable. Even Amazon eventually gets profitable. But it's always important to be cost efficient at any stage if you're in marketing. So marketing typically, especially over time, will have quite a significant budget at the company in terms of program spend, and that should be handled very, very responsibly. Yes, beyond revenue and profitability, I think, there's many ways to kind of goal marketing and look at what marketing does, but they're the leads out in, and then making sure they're qualified leads. There's the kind of the marketing sourced software and marketing sourced kind of pipeline, and marketing source revenue. Then they're just key marketing initiatives, which can be hard to tie to revenue and profitability, like most other functions as well. It can be rather indirect, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't measure it or shouldn't try to improve it or be efficient or highly effective at it. I don't love having just one marketing metric, for example, and similar to other functions, managing as well. For example, sales and in other groups, I don't like just looking at one gold metric or gold metric, or especially if it's indirect, like for marketing, having it revenue and profitability. So I like just at least a few whenever possible. And in the early days, it might be just based on marketing initiatives and not yet numbers, because it might just be a little bit too early, especially if you haven't launched your product yet.
Right.
And then marketing helps get new customers, obviously, through lead awareness, lead generation, et cetera, but also serves the existing customers with a nice and helpful website, with email communications, even if they're already customers, and it doesn't lead to kind of leads and opportunities, with events and community efforts and educational efforts and beyond. So marketing is definitely more than lead generation. There's a funny story at a prior company I was at where the CEO said marketing is just lead generation, and then I walked the person through how you can help with product marketing and launch with existing customers, corporate marketing, other things that don't necessarily lead to pipeline generation leads. And then some marketing teams own pricing, packaging, and other areas where it really doesn't make sense to kind of goal those efforts around leads. But at a highest level, leads is probably the best metric for marketing.
Yeah, and definitely pricing. Pricing is part of the 4 Ps, right? It is somewhat part of marketing, and it can make a huge impact on revenue. So when marketing owns that, they can impact revenue, not in terms of leads, right, but in terms of like just sales and revenue number, right? If you price your product differently, whether it's higher or lower, right? Because if you price it lower, you can get better volume, which impacts revenue, or higher, you get more revenue and sell to the same number of people. So at the end of the day, it's still like it's still the goal is to increase revenue, right? But not necessarily the number of leads. And you don't look at leads, you look at revenue, right? And sometimes having less leads but better leads. And actually, we have a client that we just went through this. We totally changed their pricing with them, and their revenue, I think it tripled, right? And they got less leads, but these people were the right people, right? And they were willing to pay the price and the value for the product.
That's a great example. And I hope they were very grateful. It's interesting because pricing is something that it lives in so many different functions. So it can be done in marketing extremely well. I've seen finance teams own it. I've seen product teams own it. That can work pretty well if they're thinking holistic about the product and the value proposition and the overall willingness to pay and that kind of thing. If you have the right person, it's really, I think it's like the best person at the company to do it regardless of the function. So if that person happens to be a marketer, great. If the person ideally skilled at doing it is in product or finance or even sales sometimes, that can be great as well. So I think people should be flexible and not rigid about where it kind of sits. So
Right. And in the perfect world, right, like the pricing is a team effort as well, right? Like you get the input from all the team, even though at the end of the day you have one function that's responsible for it, but all it shouldn't be dictated to all of the functions because all of the functions will have a different perspective on it.
yeah, yeah, I saw something similar, maybe a little off topic, but when I was at Microsoft, a lot of times technical marketing or product management would own the roadmap or whatever, but a lot of times they were just taking what was done in the engineering teams, because the engineering teams were much better staffed and they were closer to, especially if you had a larger product at Microsoft, there's really many products in one. And so some people thought they owned the product and they're very rigid about it, but you need to just kind of add value at the company regardless of what you're doing. And so if someone else already had a great roadmap, there's no need to really change that, but just maybe your job is just to help communicate it externally or internally, and kind of formalize it and that kind of thing. So it's good to have people working on things that they're able to contribute to as opposed to just try to own them for ownership's sake itself.
Right, exactly. All right, well, Kurt, thank you so much. I think it was a really great chat. So I appreciate your time and your thoughts here.
Thanks, I enjoyed it, and good luck.
Thank you.
See you later.